I think at the start of the decision to title the podcast It's Never About Money, I had an inkling, or I had a intuitive feeling that chasing money for the sake of money itself is not the right way of going about your life. I probably felt that by observation of others over time, what's happened in my own personal family history, but I didn't have a clear amount of evidence to sort of support the thesis. And perhaps, in selecting and curating the guests that I do, maybe I'm confirming my own bias, but certainly after the countless episodes that I've had speaking to the individuals that I have had over time, it seems to be very clear to me that the podcast has allowed me to learn through the mic, allowed me to learn that living better isn't just about chasing money. Welcome to It's Never About Money and to the start of season 6. I hope this episode sees you in good health. And this episode is a little different. It's actually just me recording, reflecting on where the podcast has been, where it's going, and how it's evolved alongside me. Over time, this show has quietly become one of the most meaningful things I do. Not necessarily because of how often I publish or how many people listen, but because of what it allows me to explore. It's really about health, about purpose, about legacy. And it's about learning and being curious and developing myself. In this opening episode, I want to share how the podcast has shifted creatively, thematically, and personally. Why I've chosen to lean into curated seasons and why this one, focused on health, feels especially resonant and important. I'll also talk about something I'm genuinely proud of, being named a finalist for the FAAA's Professional Adviser of the Year. The podcast has played a quiet but powerful role in that, not as being a promoter, but as allowing me to develop to be a better listener and an advisor, and hopefully a more thoughtful human being. So this isn't just the start of a new season. It's a look at why I do this, how it connects everything else in my life, and what I hope you'll take from the episodes to come. Let's make a start. When I originally began thinking about creating this podcast, it was born from creative energy that was burning inside me during the COVID period. Really, at that particular point in time, I was really wanting to make sure that at the end of that period, that I could look back with a sense of pride at what I might have created and what I'd developed. At the time, I was learning a lot about music production skills, specifically a program called Ableton, which is a sort of music engineering software. And I enjoyed it so much during that period, and I spent so much time on it. I thought to myself, how could I leverage the skills that I'm learning in this musical world in something else? And I decided maybe a podcast would make sense. And at the time, really all I was thinking was, how do I make a sustainable podcast, something that I'd like to do longer term? And I thought originally, there is no way that just looking at it as some sort of promoter for my business would allow it to be sustainable. I thought maybe I'd do it for a period of time and get bored with it. One of the things about me is that if I don't do something that I really, really am passionate about, I get bored very easily. And so it was important for me to do something that was interesting. And I thought, I have a lot of interesting conversations with my clients, usually related to the things outside of direct conversations with money. So what if I brought that in to some sort of a podcast that would allow others to get benefit and all of the benefit that I have received over the years? So as a young man, being able to work with retirees, I had some insights, incredible insights into, the challenges in life, the transitions in life, the different aspects of phases of life that come with certain challenges, opportunities. And it felt that I was so privileged to run my practice in the way that I did. Not only am I able to help people, but I'm able to learn off people and observe and perhaps even institute some of the great ideas that others have been implementing, unbeknownst to them, of course, that they are doing something so incredible. So at that particular point in time, really the podcast was just an idea for a win-win, merging two worlds. And so, between writing the music for the podcast, editing it, and putting it all together, and then finding guests that I found that were interesting, I began the journey. And what's been interesting is that there is this I'm driven by my own curiosity. I really can't fake interest. I've determined over time. It's very difficult for me if I'm finding something or to speak about that doesn't sort of provide that level of curiosity that I need. And so the guest choices and the topics that I follow need to be in line with my own personal interests. And that's why it takes a little while for me to actually form a season. We don't produce as much content as a result of that. And it's deliberate. It gives me enough time to think about what it is that I really want to be communicating. It was also, for me, about my own wiring, the way that I learn. I learn by vocalizing. It's my style. So when I need to learn something, I will literally communicate it out loud and listen to myself in real time and determine whether it is the right theory, solution or not, and amend. And so by having a podcast and being able to paraphrase guests and being able to stop and ask additional questions, it's a way of me being able to engage in the learning process, which is much easier and simpler for the way that my brain is wired. The amount of personal growth that I've actually had over the past 5 years, I'll often remark to friends, has been far in excess of the previous 10 years. And that's as a result of the pre-vetting process, the due diligence, the reading of books, the speaking to these particular unique individuals, holding these podcasts. It's been truly profound, and it really accelerated my rate of growth. And I've been able to implement a number of things in my life that has been really massive game changer. Some of the things, as an example, within the business, supporting KUFA, which is an organization that really looks after financial literacy in Papua New Guinea, and understanding what the issues and the concerns are with wealth inequality and the safety and violence that goes on there, and why that potentially happens. It's been a real game changer and an eye opener for us, and also being able to contribute to the financial literacy courses there ourselves has been a real meaningful endeavor. But then all of the health aspects that I've been able to pick up, the personal development, it's been incredible. I think at the start of the decision to title the podcast "It's Never About Money," I had an inkling, or I had a intuitive feeling that chasing money for the sake of money itself is not the right way of going about your life. I probably felt that by observation of others over time, what's happened in my own personal family history, but I didn't have a clear amount of evidence to sort of support the thesis. And perhaps, in selecting and curating the guests that I do, maybe I'm confirming my own bias, but certainly after the countless episodes that I've had speaking to the individuals that I have had over time, it seems to be very clear to me that the podcast has allowed me to learn through the mic, allowed me to learn that living better isn't just about chasing money. Living better is about allowing the financial world to enable you to move through the important factors of life that really contribute to our well-being. Again, these things are intuitive. It's health. It's having a really meaningful career. It's being able to give back. It's being able to develop yourself personally, spiritually. It's these things, these matters that absolutely matter. It's our connection with our families, and spending time with them, which I think in this world can be really challenging, even though we all know that it's super important. So the podcast has really helped me identify what are the right things to focus on, and what are the headwinds that I should really try to avoid or reject. And I hope those listening have felt the same way and have been able to, and are encouraged to make those changes in their life. Like I said, it's an ongoing journey. It's not about perfection. For me, it's about progress. I often make the analogy with friends that I'm a little bit like a CPU, in the sense that there's a hardware there. There's a central processing unit that is kind of innate to me and really hasn't changed too much over time. It's who I am as a person. It's what drives my capability and my potential. But on top of the CPU, we've got this sort of software upgrade that keeps occurring. And this software upgrade is really about changing your version every single year, every single day, improving and taking steps to improve. And it's that constant learning that has allowed me to feel like I'm in a really good position in my life. So it was unbelievably exciting to get a call from the FAAA Financial Adviser's main professional body to suggest that my application for Professional Advisor of the Year was met with my recognition and becoming a finalist, one of 3 finalists, in fact, to be named. At the point of this recording, I'm yet to go up and be interviewed in Sydney before a winner is announced in November in the Perth Annual Congress. To be truthful, I already feel a winner. And the reason is that all the hard work has already been done. I need to not do anything further. The recognition is not really of myself. I'm basically a mouthpiece for all those that have assisted in getting there. And, you know, I talk of my brother. We have such a strong connection. I work with him in the business. We're so different. Without him, I'm not able to focus on what I do. And so when I applied for the award, I spoke of those that I work with within the practice that actually have allowed me to apply for the award. But I did also speak of the family legacy that I had in my father's contribution to financial advice and money management, and even my mother's support of my father and us as kids in allowing him to forge a career in academia and allowing him to be able to impart his knowledge to so many of the next breed of financial planners. So for me, in receiving that award, it's such a moment of pride for all those that have come before me, all those personal connections, my family, my father. And also, it's been a large part of the application as well was related to the podcast. I mentioned that the podcast has been created not for the benefit of promoting our broader practice, but actually to provide a community service. For those that are wondering, you know, does a huge amount of financial accumulation actually improve their level of well-being? Or those that have a huge amount of financial resources wondering why they're not feeling like their well-being is great, this podcast really addresses those issues. And I wanted it to be that way. I wanted it to be accessible to everyone and for everyone to be able to get something out of it. And for it not to be just another one of those financial planning, money management style podcasts, but something that could really bring about a value in a person's life. And so I think, and I'd like to thank the community for supporting us so much because it's a large part of the reason that I've been honored with this award, but there's plenty of work to do. Along those lines, in building this podcast and this supportive community that we have, it's been, again, a lot more than money. The conversations that I've had have, as I've mentioned, made me a better advisor. It's made me ask more questions around health, career, purpose, and personal development of my clients. I've developed new strategies within our practice to ask questions about the roadblocks that might be in the way of allowing a person to have and improve their life. And some of those things we may be able to assist with because sometimes money gets in the way of these aspects. One example of it might be, I really need to spend more time with my family. And the reason why they're not is because they don't have a clear indication of whether or not they have enough funding to be able to meet their kids' school needs or maybe even their retirement goals. But once they actually have that acuity and clarity, then they could actually afford potentially to take a day off a week to spend more time with their family, as an example. So where money is a blocker, this podcast has shown me that there can be a clear path to sort of open up the pathway. The themes from this podcast also have shaped my real client conversations. It's made me more worldly and given me more experience in many of the different facets that we talk about. So you will and may have noticed that with time, we're up at season 6 now, quite a few episodes. It takes quite a long time to pre-vet the guests, to curate the list of guests, to read the books, to determine the questions, to do a pre-interview chat, to speak to the guests, and then to do all the editing and sending the materials and so on. Especially when the podcast actually does not generate any revenue in and of itself. You might have noticed that as the seasons have gone along, the episodes within the seasons have changed in terms of the number of episodes. The frequency of posting has, or uploading or dropping the podcast, as they call it, has declined. I have felt a pressure from day one to produce as much content as I possibly can. I'm reminded by a comment that Lauryn Hill made about her songwriting, that she took a long time to produce her next album after her very, very critically acclaimed one. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head at the moment. But her comment was that in order for her to produce anything, she needs to live life. The reason why her critically acclaimed album did so well was because she had lived life and it resonated with people. The pressure to just produce content for the sake of contents itself, again, is a little bit akin to worrying about the podcast being a moneymaker. And I'm not. I simply am not. I am about producing content that's evergreen, about producing content that actually is meaningful and valuable. And if it needs to take its time, it needs to take its time. I am a full-time financial advisor, and I have obviously a lot of commitments. But I think while I'm living in that world, I'm better able to produce content that is based upon the real world and giving myself time to really think about it and curate the guests than to just keep producing and finding guests wherever, nilly-willy. So what we're going to see going forward is a more creative pursuit. Fewer episodes, more meaning. Podcasting isn't my first job. It's an expression of my passion. The time that I have away allows me to deepen my reflections and produce better content. And what I want to do is create seasons that have themes, and those seasons have episodes in it that are almost more connected to each other. And I think that'll make, much like when you think about the way an artist, a musical composer might produce an album or an EP, there's a kind of color palette that they will use to produce each of their musical scores. And so in the same way, that's the way I'm thinking about the podcast. I hope that you can see that there is almost a aesthetic shift to it. And there is a lot of attention and detail that I've thought about in producing each episode, but thinking about the sequence of the episodes, how many episodes, and how to release them. So on to this season. I'm incredibly proud of the fact that this season could be a game changer. Why did I pick health as the theme? And what do I hope that people will take away from it? Well, I chose health as a theme, firstly, because I know that it was a fundamental pillar in building a meaningful life. Most people, again, intuitively will know that without good health, they can't spend enough quality time with their family. I mean, certainly people with terminal illness do not take that for granted. And I have a number of people, both within my practice, lived experience through my family and my father, that have had this situation. And you can see the gratitude for every day that they spend with their family. Yet, for some reason, when it comes to our own personal health, sometimes we can ignore it because I think we are often distracted by the signposts that society put in front of us, usually related to economic and productive activity, which there's nothing wrong with economic and productive activity. And I think it, in some way, in a balanced way, feeds back into good health. But in many instances, there are examples of people that are overworked, tired, neglecting their own personal health, and it has significant consequences on them and their family. And so to that end, that's what this season is about. This season is about helping people reevaluate how they're leading their lives, how they're thinking about their health, and hopefully being able to take a detour, move in another direction. And that's what this, again, this broader podcast proposition is about, being able to assist people to make good decisions in their life. I've chosen a diverse range of health-related professionals and practitioners, from people who are interested in neurobiology to exercise physiologists to hormone specialists. It's been an eye-opener already, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. I think, you know, on reflection, health and family are the two main drivers for me when I look at the kit of living a meaningful life. And when it comes to health, I'm reminded of my father's experience and how once he was diagnosed with a terminal illness, there wasn't a day that he wasn't grateful to be able to spend with his kids and his wife and in the community. And he also continued to work because he found so much meaning in that work as well. But I often reflect on what were the causes of his deterioration of health. Was it just genetic? Was it environmental? Was it early days trauma? What was it? And I often reflect on that because in some ways it impacted me so significantly in my life that I really wanted my other family, the remaining members of my family, friends, and myself to really observe what proactively might be good measures to improve our health so that we can have long and full lives and spend time with each other, not wonder what our lost loved ones might tell us in a trying situation, but actually have them there with you. So health is, as you can tell, incredibly important for me from that perspective. And I hope to share with you and be vulnerable and open and transparent about some of the endeavors that I will be taking to ensure that I'm aware fully and transparently of my own potential challenges in the future. It would be really irksome to me if those that were listening felt that there was almost a judgment for those imposed on those that aren't potentially doing the things that I do or that, that are suggested through the podcast. This is about, again, trying to help individuals understand and build an awareness. We all have our blind spots in life, and I certainly still do. I will say, though, in some ways, it's strange to say that I seem peculiar. And I seem peculiar when I'm around other individuals when it comes to not really having alcohol in my life, not drinking coffee, having routines around my sleep, focusing on my nutrition and what I eat, exercising quite regularly. I don't see them as quirks. Others may. I see them as survival strategies for me. Again, based upon my wiring, I just don't tend to thrive and do well, and I can't be successful if I'm not observing those aspects. And maybe it's taken me till into my 40s to really understand that. But also my dad's illness sharpened my attention around that. I really love spending time with Julian, my nephew, Jacob and Sophia, my nephew and niece. I love spending time with my family. I love going out and salsa dancing, and I love creating music and doing all of these things outside of work. And to be able to do that, I need to be healthy. And again, I'm reminded every day through my clients, through those that I look after, that health is not to be taken for granted. Dad often said to me, I remember one day as he was taking me through his garden, he'd just kind of gone through the process of having the gardener sort of clip all the trees and manicure the garden in the way that he wanted. And I don't know what sort of came over him that day, but he sort of said to me, Joe, I just want to let you know that all of the stuff that we've got here, the house and, the financial sort of side of things, what I've been able to accumulate is not really what I'm most proud of. I'm really proud of the way that I've been able to bring up 3, great kids, the love that I've had for my wife, the ability to help the community. It's those things that I take with me, none of the other things. I think in illness, I think we really need to take stock of what people say when they're ill and what they're grateful for. And in my research and speaking to others with similar plights, it's been really clear to me that no one ever says, I would have liked to have worked more at the end of their life. Dad's illness gave him time to reflect and to prepare for the end. And he really understood, in my opinion, what matters. Without a doubt, that his journey made me more intentional about my own. And for that, I'll be forever grateful. So I want to take some time. We often talk about this connection between health and money, because that real connection between health plus money really equals true wealth, in my opinion. It's about well-being over accumulation. So when we think about broadly what money management, financial planning, wealth management is really about, it isn't just about money. It isn't just about concessional contributions into superannuation. You know, how we might be able to um, invest by borrowing money, negative gearing style into a property. It's about using our resources in the most effective way to make life worth living. My dad would often say, we need to look at people's financial health, not their financial wealth. We need to look at them in the way that doctors look at them, identify and remove the blockages that are there on a path to wellness. This is where money can really enable us. So wealth is a tool that we use to be able to facilitate these very important aspects in our life. It's not the point in and of itself. In the past, the word wealth has been used to describe more than just money, but it has changed and morphed into, when we think about wealth, we think about dollar signs. And I don't think that actually meets the full picture of what wealth is all about. When it comes to my own personal practice, beyond the spreadsheets, beyond the incredible financial strategies that you might create for a client, often people will not implement your suggested strategies if they cannot be motivated to implement it. And they're not motivated to implement it where they cannot see a connection between the money and the betterment of their life. In most cases, that is true. There is a small cohort of individuals, however, that for some reason, and I don't know the answer, maybe some other financial advisors might be able to answer this for me better, they are focused on the financial accumulation for it and are deeply disconnected from what the financial accumulation will do for their lives. As an example, I've had several individuals, and I'll, maybe merge this person into a fictitious person that is based upon real world experiences. The archetypal husband and wife, where the husband owns several businesses and is overworked, tired, self-reported unhealthy. The wife is very unhappy, can see that her husband is not doing too well, would like to have retired and spent more time on holidays and spending more time with the grandkids, but it's just not happening. And the question when inquiring to this husband, how much is enough money for you to stop? He'll have a dollar sign in his mind. So he'll say, okay, well, it's $5 million. And I'll say, well, what if I was to say that based upon your needs and objectives, reality of it is you only really need $1.5 million to satisfy the objectives that you have. So the rest is actually surplus. Would it be worth foregoing some of that surplus to be able to live a meaningful life now? And the answer is, I need $5 million. Now, in that instance, the person is incredibly disconnected from what is important about money and is only focused on the importance of money. And it's my intention to spend time with people, with clients like that, and hopefully have converted some of my listeners on the podcast to thinking more intentionally about their money, because we are only here for a very short period of time. So this is a season of help. It's a bit of a fork in the road. I really hope that this sparks in our community a moment to pause and potentially recalibrate and ask what needs attention in my life when it comes to my health. Even a small change can lead to a positive transformation, in the sense that just having an awareness that this is a problem and that we're distracting ourselves from this problem regularly is the starting point of change. And to know that there is and there are solutions out there to most of the problems that we face and encounter, if we're courageous and brave enough to face that and to deal with the torment of pattern change. Pattern change is incredibly difficult to deal with. It's often abrasive and there's a lot of friction and cost in trying to alter your path. It's not comfortable. It's not usual. But sometimes it's ultimately necessary, regardless of where we are in our age and our phase of life. Sometimes if we don't actually encounter that pattern change, it's thrust upon us regardless. Death of a family member, illness to ourselves, imminent retirement, unemployment. There's so many transitions that occur that we're forced to pattern change. So from my perspective in watching all of these things, I would prefer to be ready for these issues that might be thrust upon me and preemptively working towards a plan B and a plan C. This is not really advice or telling anyone what to do. It's an invitation to listen and to learn and to provide some feedback for me and collaborate with us on socials. Going to be much more active on socials. You probably already realize that I'm spending more time on my LinkedIn page and interacting and posting about certain topics. Please get engaged, spend time with me, chat, disagree. Absolutely fine. So I'll leave you with a final note. At the cessation of the season, perhaps after every episode, maybe even now, I want you to maybe sit back and reflect. What's one small thing that you could do today for a better, healthier, and more meaningful tomorrow? I hope you really enjoy the series of episodes that are going to be dropped. I have absolutely loved them. The guests are fantastic, and I hope it makes a difference. If you have resonated in any way with the sentiments of this podcast, we would be delighted to direct you to our website, www.itsneveraboutmoney.com.au, for more free resources and education aimed at improving your capacity to make sound financial decisions for the benefit of your family. We wish you every success, however you define it.